All right, hi friends, live from Detroit. We are at Northern High School, and in the background here, we have large, as big as the wall, artwork from Charles McGee. And we are in the middle of learning about artists from Detroit. We are in the middle of learning about artist styles and being able to pick up on how their art looks, like the way they make their stuff, like what words you use. And we played an I Spy game. Like, for instance, for Charles McGee here, looking over there, I spy a large mural that has cut and paste fabric, which I know you guys really having a hard time seeing, but it is huge, with large blue eyes and pieces of material and paint, which would be mixed media, and glue and scissors and abstract as pieces, as well as what looks like, look at that, the triangle with an eyeball in it. So it is just very strange art, but again, that is art from Charles McGee. All right. And I hope everybody has this wonderful chance to enjoy today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get this party started. All right. So I did have you all look at art from Detroit, right? And so these are all artists from Detroit, and I had you do I Spy, and you can tell, like this one, this artist likes to paint, what somebody described it, grandmas holding up their favorite loved ones in pictures. These are paintings. Over here on the right, we see just sheets in paint hung up on a wall. Line, shape, form, color, space, texture, value. These two artworks are very colorful. These two other artworks have pattern in the background. These two artworks have art in a book. And then this lovely lady over here in the bottom left, she likes to put herself in the art. That's called installation art. Here she's holding a piece of paper and they took the picture. Here she's showing that she's glued on to her art here. And then using the I Spy game, we looked at artwork from the Detroit artists here. This artist paints on the wall. Anita Bates does partly colored, partly black and white, not finished art. Now, believe it or not, Charles McGee did these in the bottom left-hand corner. So he loves to work large. That would be the giveaway for him. Over here on the right, we see art that are photographs. At the top right, artists drew paintings of feet. And then here is some collage work, and they just use, I don't know, I wouldn't have chose to use those colors, but I do love the scissors and glue work that they did there in the middle. Here is Conrad E. Here is his exhibition. We can see at the gallery. And so the person that organizes the gallery, and maybe you'll do that some way, she put the ones that were red together, and then she put the ones that are like poppy colors together, and then see how these in the background, these three portraits sort of go together. And so this, again, the work of Conrad. This is the work of, oh, I didn't write it. Oh, Leroy Foster. All right. And he mostly does painting. All right. And he's got all these different styles. It's a little hard to map him out, but all of these artists are contemporary artists. And so Ms. K is trying to get you to be able to recognize. And so let me go ahead and find, having trouble finding. I found the video today, and we're going to get to continue to play the Book-It until we get a better understanding of the different artists and their movements. All right, so let's go ahead and look at whatever one that pops up here. Hopefully we'll be able to see both. Of course, that's the one that oh, it is. Yay. Let's listen to her.
Our history is divided into periods and movements. The difference between the two is time and intent. Art periods are based on historical eras, and unlike art movements, they aren't consciously formed by artists. Art historians group their art together because they're made during the same time in the same geographical location, so they share a lot of similarities in their cultures, religions, and taste in art subjects. For example, medieval art is made during the medieval time, so right after the fall of Rome and right before the Renaissance. Pretty straightforward, right? So there's the prehistorical period, Mesopotamian period, Egyptian period, Byzantine period, Renaissance period, Baroque period, and that's just a few of them. An art movement is formed by a group of artists, usually with a set goal.
Miss Kay, why are we doing this? I just want you to know like a history of art in a quick chapter of our life here. I don't want to spend I could spend the whole rest of the year teaching you about Egyptian art. If that's something you want to learn about, let me know. If not, I'm just going to keep this just one chapter, just understanding that art happened through time. And we're going to keep on listening here.
And they can have an associated art style or a shared ideology. They usually have meetings, manifestos, and publications that clearly state their goals, basically what they think art should be. Some art movements include realism, impressionism, expressionism, cubism, surrealism, and pop art. The line between periods and movements isn't always clear, but while periods were designated after the fact, movements were formed by artists. They may have not called themselves that, like the Mannerists didn't call themselves Mannerists, but they had a same set of goal and ideology that they aspired to, that set them apart from any church or state's regulation of what good art is. Art made today is sort of grouped under this larger umbrella of contemporary art, but maybe in the future they'll have more descriptive names than just contemporary, because I can see that being really confusing. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, now is a perfect time to transition into my outro and prompt you to go watch my What's the Difference Between Modern and Contemporary Art.
Her name is Phillips Franklin. So if you want to subscribe to her, I hope I'll remember to put it in the chat. Now this is
futurist art
easy way. Well, it's not necessarily easy, but it is a quick way to sort of, I want you just being able to tell me, I thought the blank was fun because it had blah, blah, blah. So just try to figure out which one is your favorite. I don't expect you to remember all of these art movements. All right, there are a whole bunch and some do overlap. And so let's just take a look at them.
The Renaissance, spanning from the 14th to 17th centuries, was a cultural revival originating in Italy that celebrated humanism, innovation, and the revival of classical knowledge. This is the first time linear perspective, chiaroscuro, light and shadow, and sfumato, blurring edges to create realism, have been used. During this period, oil painting was also invented, allowing for greater detail and vibrant colors. Some notable artists are Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael. The Baroque period, flourishing from the late 16th to early 18th centuries, was marked by grandeur, drama, and emotion. Artists of this era employed elaborate ornamentation, dynamic compositions, and dramatic use of light and shadow to evoke powerful emotions and religious fervor. Baroque art often depicted scenes of intense action, theatricality, and spiritual ecstasy. Some famous artists of this period are Caravaggio, Gian Lorenzo Bernini, and Rembrandt. Rococo emerged in the early 18th century as a reaction against the grandeur of the Baroque, emphasizing elegance, frivolity, and decorative exuberance. Characterized by pastel colors, ornate designs, and playful themes, Rococo art embraced sensuality, romance, and the pleasures of aristocratic life. Neoclassicism emerged in the mid-18th century as a reaction against the excesses of the Rococo, drawing inspiration from the art and ideals of ancient Greece and Rome. Neoclassical artists embraced simplicity, symmetry, and rationalism. Their works often portrayed heroic subjects from history, mythology, and literature. Romanticism emerged in the late 18th century as a reaction against the rationalism of the Enlightenment, celebrating emotion, imagination, and the sublime in nature. Artists of this movement sought to evoke intense feelings and capture the awe-inspiring power of the natural world, often depicting dramatic landscapes, heroic figures, and exotic scenes. Romantic art prioritized individual expression, spirituality, and the exploration of the unconscious mind. Realism emerged in the mid-19th century as a response to the idealism of Romanticism, seeking to depict the everyday lives of ordinary people with honesty and accuracy. Realist artists portrayed the harsh realities of urban and rural life, often focusing on themes of social injustice, poverty, and labor. Their works celebrated the dignity of common people and emphasized the importance of objective observation and truthful representation. Impressionism emerged in the late 19th century as a reaction against academic painting and the constraints of realism. Characterized by a focus on capturing the fleeting effects of light and atmosphere, Impressionist artists employed loose brushwork, vibrant colors, and an emphasis on the play of light to create evocative, atmospheric scenes. Rejecting traditional subjects and techniques, artists like Claude Monet, Edgar Degas, and Pierre-Auguste Renoir depicted contemporary life, landscapes, and everyday moments with a sense of immediacy and spontaneity. Post-Impressionism emerged in the late 19th century as a continuation and expansion
Vincent van Gogh is a post-impressionist.
of the Impressionist movement, marked by a departure from naturalistic representation and a greater emphasis on personal expression and formal experimentation. Post-Impressionist artists explored new ways of depicting form, color, and space, often employing bold colors, simplified forms, and symbolic imagery to convey emotional and psychological depth. Some notable artists are Vincent van Gogh, Paul Cézanne, and Georges Seurat. Symbolism emerged in the late 19th century as a reaction against the materialism and rationalism of the modern world, emphasizing the use of symbols, myths, and dreams to convey deeper spiritual and psychological truths. Symbolist artists sought to evoke mystery, ambiguity, and the irrational aspects of human experience, often employing allegory, metaphor, and surreal imagery to explore themes of love, death, and the unconscious mind. Art Nouveau emerged in the late 19th century as a reaction against historicism and the industrialization of modern life, embracing organic forms, decorative motifs, and innovative design principles. Characterized by its sinuous lines, asymmetrical compositions, and ornate embellishments, Art Nouveau encompassed a wide range of artistic expressions, including architecture, furniture, jewelry, and graphic design. Fauvism emerged in the early 20th century as a bold and audacious departure from traditional painting, characterized by its use of vivid colors, energetic brushwork, and distorted forms. Fauvist artists rejected naturalistic representation in favor of pure, expressive color, often using non-naturalistic hues to evoke emotional and psychological intensity. Expressionism emerged in the early 20th century as a movement characterized by its emphasis on subjective experience, emotional intensity, and the distortion of form for expressive purposes. Expressionist artists sought to convey inner feelings and psychological truths through exaggerated colors, shapes, and gestures, often depicting scenes of anxiety, alienation, and existential angst. Cubism emerged in the early 20th century as a revolutionary departure from traditional representation, characterized by its fragmented forms, multiple viewpoints, and geometric abstraction. Cubist artists sought to deconstruct reality into its fundamental shapes and planes, challenging the viewer's perceptions and assumptions about space and form. Led by Pablo Picasso and Georges Braque, Cubism introduced a radical new approach to painting that emphasized the process of seeing and interpreting the world, laying the groundwork for subsequent developments in abstraction and modernism. Futurism emerged in the early 20th century as a celebration of modernity, technology, and the dynamism of urban life. Rejecting tradition and embracing the speed and energy of the machine age, futurist artists exalted concepts such as movement, industrialization, and the future. Dada emerged in the early 20th century as a response to the horrors of World War I, characterized by its rejection of logic, reason, and traditional aesthetic values. Dada artists embraced absurdity, chance, and anti-art, using collage, assemblage, and performance to challenge conventional notions of art and society. Surrealism emerged in the early 20th century as a movement dedicated to exploring the unconscious mind in the realm of dreams. Surrealist artists sought to bypass rational thought and tap into the deep reservoirs of the psyche, creating bizarre, fantastical, and irrational imagery. Abstract Expressionism emerged in the mid-20th century as a bold and expressive departure from representational art, characterized by its emphasis on gesture, emotion, and the act of painting itself. Abstract Expressionist artists sought to convey inner truths and universal themes through the language of color, form, and texture, often working on large-scale canvases with gestural brushstrokes and dynamic compositions. Abstract Expressionism became a dominant force in post-war American art, embodying the spirit of individualism, freedom, and creative experimentation. Pop art emerged in the 1950s and 1960s as a reaction against the elitism and pretension of the art world, celebrating the imagery and iconography of popular culture. Pop artists drew inspiration from advertising, mass media, and consumerism, incorporating images of celebrities, consumer products, and everyday objects into their work. Minimalism emerged in the 1960s as a reaction against the emotionalism and excesses of abstract expressionism, emphasizing simplicity,
Not on
clarity,
the
and
left.
reduction. Minimalist artists sought to strip
Is on
away
the
all
right.
extraneous elements and focus on the essential qualities of form, color, and space, often creating geometric, monochromatic, and serial compositions. Minimalism sought to create a direct, immediate, and immersive experience for the viewer, exploring the fundamental elements of art and perception. Conceptual art emerged in the 1960s and 1970s as a radical departure from traditional art-making practices, emphasizing ideas, concepts, and processes over aesthetic considerations. Conceptual artists sought to challenge the notion of art itself, often creating works that were ephemeral, immaterial, or participatory in nature. Conceptual art blurred the boundaries between art and life, questioning the role of the artist, the viewer, and the institution in the creation and reception of art. Contemporary art encompasses a wide range of artistic practices and approaches from the late 20th century to the present day, reflecting the diverse and interconnected nature of global culture. Contemporary artists engage with a variety of themes, materials, and technologies, often addressing social, political, and environmental issues in their work. With no single dominant style or movement, contemporary art is characterized by its diversity, innovation, and ongoing dialogue with the ever-changing world around us.
All right. So I hope you understood at least maybe a couple. That was so fast, but it was every art movement explained in 8 minutes. Now you could go on and look, like once you click on it, you'll see surrealism. That was a movement of make-believe things. The cartoon one, I could click on this one and we could watch that. I just want you to understand that art happened in different periods, like Egyptian art, but also art had movements, which were like people like this surrealists got together. Salvador Dali got with Rene Magritte, and they decided to make an art movement called surrealism, where they put an apple instead of a face on the person's head. And so that's sort of like uses juxtaposition. It was very realistic art, and they chose to make it look unreal. But it's just a really cool collage project that I do. And so I hope you enjoyed watching this. And I hope you are able to understand now a little bit more about where the Detroit artists fit into contemporary art, as well as you and me. We fit into contemporary art, and even Charles McGee out there on the wall, it's having trouble now, is a contemporary artist. And I hope you're able to pick up and be able to name one art movement that you liked or art period, and be able to explain using words like we used words to describe our Detroit artists. Use some words like art, line, shape, form, color, space, texture, value, or the principles of design in order to answer, just give me a brief paragraph about your favorite art movement. All right, friends, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this quick version. Again, if you want me to slow it down, because there's just so much we could cover, friends. I hope you enjoyed today. Love you guys. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you.